Well, that wasn't exactly ideal. South Carolina out in Fort Myers for the Fort Myers tip-off this week suffers a 75-66 loss to number 22 Xavier on Monday night just a short while ago. The Gamecocks had a really solid start to this game. First half was looking really good, went on a 17-0 run after Xavier opened the game up, leading 7-0, and it looked like things were really rolling. Gamecocks took a 5-point lead into the second half, and then the wheels just started to fall off. Xavier, give them a lot of credit. They came out playing really well in the second half, but it didn't help that South Carolina turned the ball over 12 times in this game. Xavier had 20 points off of turnovers, which is really an insane number when you kind of just look at the game in general and how big of a difference that makes in what was a 9-point loss for South Carolina and allowed Xavier to have such a comfortable cushion in the final minutes of that game. Because let's face it, the Musketeers were kind of in a position where, yeah, South Carolina cut the lead down a little bit in the second half and they made it a little bit of a game. But honestly, I think Xavier kind of controlled this game from start to finish in the second half specifically. Another issue for the Gamecocks, offensive rebounding was just not there tonight. When you get out rebounded 12-4 on offensive boards and you're just allowing Xavier, I don't know what, just watching on TV, it just looked like Xavier was playing with much more energy and I think a little bit more physical too, to be honest. And they just seem to have more tenacity to crash to the boards, grab rebounds, and then go right back up for those second chance points. Speaking of which, Xavier had 12 compared to South Carolina's 6 on second chance opportunities, which is another reason why the Gamecocks lost this game. But honestly, man, I think just you didn't get enough from your guys tonight. Like the first half was solid, but you didn't put it together in the second half. You kind of started making a lot of mistakes in that second half, and it kind of compounded to where you were behind by a lot and you had to play from behind pretty much for the better majority of that second half. So, look, I have seen the reactions that, look, South Carolina's now 3-3 on the year. This is another game where it's a quad one opportunity and the Gamecocks squandered it. And I thought this was a really good opportunity for them to get that big type of win after losing to Indiana out in Bloomington last weekend. And now you've got to go out here on Wednesday. You're playing Virginia Tech, a team that you should beat. I'd be pretty shocked if South Carolina doesn't beat Virginia Tech. But, I mean, again, you never know. I think a lot of people are looking at it and they're like, oh, this isn't a good start for South Carolina. And, yeah, you'd be right. Like, this team really hasn't played a complete basketball game yet, in my opinion, at least. That's just my opinion. I think they've got a lot of work to do. There's some good things they do. There's some things that leave a lot to be desired, at least in my opinion. Like, again, the turnovers are an issue. The inconsistency shooting. You shot really well in the first half. You shot nearly 48% from the field. And then in the second half, you only make one three-pointer and you shoot about 38%. So that's a 10% drop-off, and that is not going to cut it against a ranked team that is off to a really good start this season. So you got to be able to kind of put it all together for a complete game, and you got to be better rebounding. I think that has been such a big issue for this team this entire season. And look, I think Lamont Paris went out and addressed that need of getting more big men with bringing a guy like Nick Pringle and Jordan Butler, but I just feel like it hasn't fully translated over yet. I mean, Nick only grabbed 3 rebounds tonight. He had more personal fouls than rebounds, so that should kind of just say a lot about how that went for South Carolina. Again, I think Xavier with their bigs, they were more physical, and they seemed to just have more urgency to grab rebounds, and that made a big difference tonight. So, look, it's not ideal that South Carolina is not off to a great start. Obviously, I think it's way too early for any overreactions, though I will be honest, this team, from what I've seen so far, it just feels a little different to what they had last year rolling with such a good start. And I think because you lose guys like B.J. Mack, Michi Johnson, Talon Cooper, you're kind of seeing where those guys had such a big impact on the game. Though it is 6 games into the year, and a lot can change over the course of these next dozen or so, bunch of games coming up over the next few months. So like I said before, South Carolina We'll be back in action on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, against Virginia Tech. Tip-off is at 6 p.m. from Fort Myers on Fox Sports 1. Be sure to stay locked into GamecockCentral.com for all live updates and coverage from that game and more throughout the rest of this season. For GamecockCentral.com, I'm Jack Veltri.